Welcome to the course on using Google Forms and Google Sheets to collect data. Our learning target for today is that you will expand your knowledge and use of Google Forms and/or Sheets to keep track of the data that's important to you. That might be grades and assignments, it might be IEP goals and objectives, or behavior data, etc. Whatever data you collect, I think you'll find it much more efficient to collect it using Google Forms and Sheets. Here's our agenda for the course. First, we're going to talk about the advantages of using a Google form to send data to Google Sheets, and we'll walk through how to do that. We will also explore how to find and use Google Sheet templates. We will cover how to use conditional formatting to color code your data. We'll talk about basic formulas and where to go to find the more advanced formulas. And for those of you using Google Classroom, we'll cover how you can add student scores from assignments that were outside of Google Classroom to your Google Classroom gradebook sheet. So first, we're going to talk about using Google Forms to collect data. I've found Google Forms to collect data to be the most efficient method. I love Google Forms for so many reasons, but some of the advantages of using them to collect data are that you automatically get a time and date stamp when you fill out the form. You automatically get a chart to summarize your data, which is nice to show parents or others during a meeting. Another advantage is that many people can contribute to collecting the data you need without you ever actually having to give access to the spreadsheet where you're storing that data. So you can easily share it with a paraprofessional or related service provider and not worry about how tech savvy they are, as they can't mess anything up for you if they're just using that Google form. Plus, it's much easier to fill out a Google form on a phone or a tablet, so it's mobile friendly. Sometimes entering the data in your phone is the quickest and easiest way to collect that data on the spot. So if you click on the form on this slide, you'll be able to make yourself a copy of this Google form and use it for reference. Let's take a look at some of those advantages that we talked about within the Google form itself. So by default, this form opens up to the Questions tab up on top. But we want to take a look at the Responses tab to the right of it. First, you can see the charts that are automatically created for you. This first one isn't so important because it's just asking which goal area that you're collecting data for. But if we scroll down to the next one, we can see that in 75% of opportunities, the student was able to identify accommodations during discussion. And if we hover over yes, we can see that there were 3 responses for yes. And if we hover over no, we can see that there was 1 no response. So you can very quickly get a summary of your data here. Now you also have the option to easily copy this chart and paste it into another document if you want. Just click on the copy icon here. And now you could go into Google Slides or a Google Doc. Let's just bring in a Google Doc. And now that you've copied that chart, you can either go up to the Edit menu and choose Paste, or you can use that keyboard shortcut, Control-V. And there we have our nice chart. Okay, heading back over to our form responses. Now let's head back up to the top of this responses page. And we can see we have an icon here to view the responses in Google Sheets. So let's click on that option. Now within the spreadsheet that you opened, you can see that you have the timestamp column on the far left. And if you're collecting data on the spot, this gives you a nice idea if the time of day also impacts how successful the student is. So maybe they're more focused in the morning, maybe you'll learn that they're more focused in the afternoon. Plus, if you're sharing this form with several people to fill out, you probably want to turn on the collect email addresses option in your form setting. And that way you'll have a column here that lists the email addresses of the person collecting the data also. This will help in two ways. It'll help if you have questions about the data that they collected. But again, it will also help you identify to see if there's a pattern of whether the student is working better for a particular staff person. And then we can learn from that staff person what kind of strategies they're using, and maybe everyone can be more successful with the student. You'll notice on this sheet that your questions are the column headings and your answers are below. Keep in mind that you do have the option to change the formatting of this sheet. For example, you can see that I changed the direction of the text on the top up here to be at an angle. And that way my columns don't have to be so wide, but I can still see the entire question. To do that, just select the row that you want to change up here at the top. And then go ahead and go up to the Format menu and go down to Text Rotation. And what I chose was to tilt this up. Of course, you could also tilt down or stack vertically, but you have some options there to reformat this sheet. And we're going to be talking about other ways to format Google Sheets as we move through this presentation. So keep in mind that you can make those formatting changes in this Google Sheet that's being generated from the form. For example, you can do conditional formatting, or you could add formulas to summarize maybe some data in one of these columns. So keep in mind any of the other things that you see can be applied to this Google Sheet that's been generated from that Google form. Let's head back over to our slideshow. Creating a Google form is really easy, but if you've never done it before and you want someone to walk through it for you, there will be a link here on this slide to take you to a nice step-by-step tutorial to watch those steps. If you have made a Google form before, keep in mind that the trick to making collecting IEP data easy is to create sections, so that your first question here is which goal area are you recording data for? And that way you don't have to do a whole bunch of scrolling to get down to the goal that you want to be recording data for. On this sample form here, we only had 2 goals we were collecting data on, but if you have more than 2 goal areas, you're definitely going to want to use this feature down here that says go to section based on answer. So the first thing you'll do with your form is to create your sections. The next thing you'll do is go in here and choose which section people are going to go to based on their answer up here. So let's just take a quick look at how that's done back on our form. All right, so we're going to go back to our questions tab as if we were creating this form to begin with. And this little icon here with the, looks like a little equal symbol, right? That's how you're going to add a new section. But we've already done that. And we've already added this goal here that says which goal area are you working for, collecting data for, excuse me. And so over here in our 3-dot menu, we can choose go to section based on answer. So if we choose that of going to section based on answer, that next to your answers up here, you're going to be able to choose which section they're going to go to. So number 2, independent work skills. So I want them to go to section 3, independent work skills. If they choose underneath number 1 that they want to, if they choose number 1 rather, I'm going to make sure that they go to the section titled Self-Advocacy. So I created those section titles ahead of time, and as we scroll down here, you can just see here is my section 2 of 3, and it's titled Self-Advocacy. That's how the Google form knew to list those up here above in my first question. If you want a little bit more step-by-step details about how to do that process, there's really nice step-by-step directions. If you click on this link here in slide 6 to the You Ought to Know blog. All right, so let's move on from Google Forms. We talked now about using Google Forms and sending that data to Google Sheets. The next thing we're going to talk about are templates. So let's go one more here. So there is a really nice gradebook template already created for you in Google Sheets. And if you use it, it's going to keep you from having to do a lot of formulas and that sort of thing. It's already built those formulas in for you. So pretty simple to get there and find them. There's some steps, but let's just go into our Google Drive so that you can see how that works. So I'm in my Google Drive and I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to go to Google Sheets, and I'm going to choose from a template instead of choosing this top option. So I'm going to go down and say from a template. And you can see the top category here is education. And so that gives me a template for attendance, a template for gradebook, and a template as an assignment tracker. So let's go ahead and click on this gradebook template. So again, like I said, this gives you some really nice options already built in here. And so the overview here, you can change anything in the spreadsheet. Once you open it up, it's now your own, and you can change any of these. And so you see here that they have their grading system range. And so if your range is something different than this, you can go ahead and change it. And whatever you change here will then change how the grade is calculated on your corresponding pages. So now here on the second tab that says grades, this is where you're actually going to go in and enter how the students did on their new assignments. So in column H here, you would give this assignment a name. Let's just abbreviate that by saying homework 2. And then this next cell down is how much that assignment was worth. So let's keep this homework assignment the same as this one and just say it was worth 10 points. So now I can go in and add the grade for each student. Maybe this student got 8 on that homework assignment. This one got a perfect 10, and this one got a 7. So you can see once I entered all of those, the class average up here was automatically calculated for us, which is really nice. It also automatically changed the students' grades here. So this is calculating all of these for you and putting them in there. So it's giving you the percentage in column D, and then it's using this first sheet. It's using that percentage and looking this up and saying, oh, this is the grade that student deserves. If, for example, they have an 85, then we know that they should have a B in this column. So again, works really nice, already set up for you, and you can make whatever changes you might want to. So that is the gradebook template. Let's head back over to our slides here. So we just talked about templates. The next thing I want to talk about is conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is a nice way to have important data stick out to you at a glance. So for example, in your gradebook sheet, you might want to know all the students who are failing. So let's take a look and see how we can do that. Again, here are the directions right here. When we go to our sheet, we're going to select the cells that we want to apply this conditional format to. And then we'll go to the format menu and choose conditional formatting. And then we get this special menu to fill in the details. So here we are back at our gradebook template. And let's just add in a couple more students here so that you can see how this works. Student 5, and let's go ahead and give them all zeros. Or actually, let's give them maybe just a few points, but not too many, so that you can see how all the calculations are working for you automatically. Okay, so we want to color code maybe all of our percentages here because we want to see right away if a student is failing. So I'm going to select these cells, and then I'm going to go up to formatting, and I'm going to go down to conditional formatting. Now I have this conditional format rules menu that shows up over on the right hand side, and I can add another rule. And here is that range again. I can change the range right here if I want to. But my format rules, I want to say format cells if. I'm going to go to numbers down here. The nice thing about this conditional formatting is you can apply it to just text if you want to, or you can apply it to a date, or you can apply it to numbers. I'm going to say less than or equal to, and then I'm going to put in a value. And I'm just going to go back over to my overview tab real quick. And if I want to see anyone who is failing, that would be anyone who's at a 59% or less. So let's again go back to my grade tab, and I'm going here. And the format I wanted was less than or equal to, and the value is going to be 59%. And the format style. So now this is where I can pick what color or what format I want to change on any of those numbers that are at 59 or below. So I probably don't want them green. I maybe want them to be red. And then I can click done. So now you can see that my students who have under 59% are in red. And I can very quickly have a conversation with them about what's going on. So that's just one way you can use this conditional formatting. Okay, so we talked about conditional formatting on our agenda. The next thing we want to talk about is basic formulas. So keep in mind that all formulas or functions start with the equal sign. And the two most common formulas we need in education are usually figuring out the sum or adding rows together, or is calculating percentages or the average. So if you look at these bottom three examples here, over on the left-hand side, you can see that you have different options for how to add columns up. So this first option shows you what it would look like if you wanted a straight range from your spreadsheet. So that's what the little colon in there means. So you would type in equals sum, and you would say A2 colon A100, or you would just select all of those on your spreadsheet. This next example here shows us that you can choose from different spots on your spreadsheet. So you might choose cell A1 and then cell B2 and then D4 and then G5, and you can add them all together. Or you can do a combination of these two above. You can choose cell A1, skip down to B2, and then maybe you want to add A2 through A50 as well. You also want a range in there. Very similar over here with our averages. You can do the same sort of thing. So let's just go into our spreadsheet and see how that can be done. Let's look at a different spreadsheet example here, one for missing work, right? So maybe you have a tab for each student on the spreadsheet and you're trying to calculate the number of missing assignments that each student has. So if I just want to know a total of how many missing assignments are out there, I would choose my cell here, and I would just type in the formula bar there, equals, and I would say sum. And you can see as I start typing, I do get a list of potential functions or formulas. So I'm just going to choose sum from the list. And then I get a nice parenthesis, and I can start to choose what I want to summarize. So in this case, it's a range, and it makes it really easy. So I'm just going to pull all of these, and you can see that added my cell range. And so then I can let go and I can hit enter. And you can see that it just totaled up these numbers for me. So if you wanted to figure out the average number of assignments that this student maybe is missing per week, you could do that as well. Let's just select the cell right below that. And let's say equals, and we're going to type in the word average. And then we will select the numbers we want averaged and hit enter. And so they are averaging 2.857, etc., missing assignments per week. Okay, so like I said before, these are just two really common functions that lots of us use in education. But if you want to see a list of all the functions available to you in Google Sheets, you can just go up to the help menu here, and you can go down here to this functions list. You could also go here to keyboard shortcuts if you like to move around your spreadsheet using keyboard shortcuts. But let's just show you what happens when we click on this function list. It's just going to open up all the functions that Google Sheets is capable of making into a new tab here. And now you can sort by keywords, or you can narrow down your search by a particular type of function. You can see there's lots of types even. So that's where you can find those more advanced functions. All right, so heading back over to our slides, we talked about where to see the functions list. Another feature of Google Sheets that make them efficient is the autofill feature. So if you have a text pattern or a formula pattern that you want repeated, you can select 2 or more of the cells with that pattern. Then you'll get a nice blue square, and you'll be able to drag it throughout the row or column where you want that pattern repeated. Let's take a look at how that works on this assignment tracker sheet. Over here, if you wanted to name all your assignments in a pattern, like assignment 1, and then you just wanted to name them assignment 2, assignment 3, so on and so forth, you can fill in the first 2 rows here. And now select those 2 rows because that's the pattern that you want. And now here's that blue square I was talking about. So now I can click on that blue square and just drag it. And now you can see it just continued nicely with my pattern there. So this works the same way with formulas. As you can see, the autofill feature can be a really nice time saver. Let's head back to our slides here. Okay, so we got done talking about basic formulas and autofill. Next, let's quickly just go over how you can add scores from assignments outside of Google Classroom into the spreadsheet from your Google Classroom gradebook. The first step to doing this is to copy all of your grades from Google Classroom into a Google Sheet. So let's take a quick look at that. And I'm going to choose my new class for training class. And I'm going to go into classwork. And then you're going to actually click one of your assignments. It doesn't matter which one. And then you'll click View Assignment. From here, be sure you're on the Student Work tab. And then you can go over to Settings and say Copy All Grades to Google Sheets. This opens up a nice Google Sheet with all your classroom assignments listed in it. So looking back at our slides, The first thing to do is to add additional columns over here to the right. And then you're going to have to be sure to adjust the cell range over here in the percentage column. So let's flip back over here. And so let's scroll all the way to the end of our assignments. And then up here in our last column, we can right click and we can say insert one right. And then again, we can say insert one right. And now you can go in and add the dates for those assignments if you want, if that's important. You can give those assignments their title and be sure to mention how many points each of those assignments is worth, because that's how the percentage is calculated. And then you can go down and bring in those scores for students. So let's say this student got a 79 and an 85, and maybe the next student got a 89 and a 95. Now you just want to go back to column D on the left here and make sure that this is calculating all the way over to now AH. So here we're going to say our last one is AH6. And then in the second part of this formula, we just want to make sure it goes all the way over to AH. So again, we're going to change that to H. And then we can do the same thing below. We want to make sure our AF is changed to AH. And that this one here is changed to H. So now we talked before about autofill. So if we select these two cells, we can just copy them all the way down and that formula pattern will continue. So if I continue down here now, you can see that all of these are going all the way out to AH. Okay, so that's going to about do it as far as making it through our agenda and our slides. Now we're going to talk about your assignment, which is to apply what you've learned and create a Google form and or a Google Sheet that you think will be helpful for you in gathering the data that you're going to need next school year. Once you finish that sheet or form, you're going to use the Currents community to link to a copy of your form or sheet and explain how you're going to use it. And just remember, don't include any student identifying information on the sheet as you post it. But then you're also going to just change the share settings so that anyone at 917 can view the sheet or the form. And so let's look at how that's done. So within your Google Sheet, you're going to go over to Share, and down here where it says Get Link, you're going to change this. You don't want restricted because you want other people to be able to view this. So you want to be able to share with Intermediate School District 917, and you just want us to be able to view it. So just leave the top one here at Viewer. And then you're just going to copy the link, say Done, and let's go to that Currents community I talked about. And what do you want to share? You can go ahead and click on the link, add the link, and I'm just going to say sample data collection sheet. You can call it whatever makes sense to you and say okay, and go ahead and give it a title. I'm just going to call it my data collection sheet for IEP goals. And down below, I'm just going to type a little bit about how I would use this particular sheet. And when I'm finished explaining how I'm going to use this sheet or form, I'll just say post. And now other people can add a comment if they want to. So when you go in and post, be sure you also read and comment on someone else's. Hopefully you have another option in here to look at besides mine. So thank you very much for your participation in this course. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. During the summer, I will be checking emails and looking at coursework on Wednesdays, so you can always expect an answer by a Wednesday. I'm looking forward to seeing the forms and the sheets that you create.